It is 10:42 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's the third day of February 2025. We're already in the second month of this brand spanking new year. This is episode 1030 of Bitcoin and Whoa Nelly, right? Whoa Nelly. Yesterday was a bag of shit. Actually, the whole weekend was pretty much just like one of those weekends you want to forget ever happened. There is some recovery going on this morning, but yeah, giant red candles, definitely not what you want to see. And this all boils down to Trump and the tariffs. Oh my God. Oh my God. So what do we got on? We're going to talk about the tariffs today. And MicroStrategy is in the news, but not for what you think it will be. Then we got, well, the Mexican standoff. It seems that the tariffs may have actually opened up the ears of our neighbors to the south. We'll find out. That law firm that was gonna do a class action lawsuit against Pump.fun looks like they might have gotten caught with their hand in the cookie jar. We'll find out more. Utah getting close. They could actually be the very first state to enact, enable, and otherwise install a Bitcoin strategic reserve. Texas, well, got cold and it affected mining. We've got some partnerships between the 256 Foundation, you know, those guys that actually found a block while they were having their hashathon. Yeah. Well, Block seems to be partnering with them. We'll get details on that. Damus Note Deck version 0.3 is on the way. It's got some interesting features. And then we've got the Human Rights Foundation also in the news. But first up, we got tariff talk. Is it risk on assets? Well, the Trump tariffs leads to mass Bitcoin and crypto liquidations. Aaron Wood going to start us out from Cointelegraph. Oh no, Bitcoin went down. We're all going to die. United States President Donald Trump has introduced tariffs on major trading partners Canada, Mexico, and China, sending markets into a tizzy. Oh, it's such a tizzy. Bitcoin slumped below $100,000 on February the 2nd, while altcoins like Ripple and Cardano are down over 17 and 22% respectively as of the time of writing. Trump's own World Liberty financial portfolio suffered losses of over 20%, according to Spot on Chain. Yeah, that is probably going to make this. Okay, hold on. I got to pause because I've been talking about this ethics thing with Trump and the fact that he's going to be the Trump, you know, the crypto president, but he's also got these meme coins and this World Liberty financial. Let's just kind of roll back and just I don't know, kind of revel in the fact that we have this conundrum. It is an ethical situation. It just is. It doesn't matter if you like Trump or hate Trump. It is an ethical situation because, well, he's going to be he wants crypto policies in the United States. He's the crypto president, and yet he's got his fingers in the cookie jar as well. But since what he does, like with this whole tariff thing, he kicked himself in his own ass. So from that standpoint, we actually have a guy, because he's got his hands in the cookie jar, every time he makes a move, he's going to get immediate feedback as to whether or not that shit works for his interests or not. Anyway, I had to say it. The total market liquidation from this weekend is estimated to be at least around 8 to 10 billion. That's billion with a B. The amount of total market liquidation is estimated to be between 8 and 10 billion dollars. That's the at least number, according to Bybit co-founder and CEO Ben Zhao. Responding to a Cointelegraph post on Twitter, the crypto exchange executive said, quote, Bybit's 24-hour liquidation alone was $2.1 billion. Holy shit, end quote. On February the 1st, Trump placed a 25% additional import tariff on Mexico and Canada, and then 10% for China. Markets spiraled. Major stock indices and crypto just racked up losses across the board. Trump stated that he plans to introduce tariffs on the European Union, as well as superconductors, oil, gas, steel, and copper as soon as February the 18th. This train is a-rolling, ladies and gentlemen, and while many are saying that investors should buy the dip, some analysts are noting the increasing correlation between crypto and traditional markets, stating that the incoming tariffs could send Bitcoin tumbling further and increase market uncertainty. As Bitcoin adoption grows, the role of the asset has changed. Traders, investors, and enthusiasts still debate whether Bitcoin is ultimately a risk-on or risk-off asset. The price of risk-on assets is driven by factors such as earnings, market sentiment, bank policies, and speculation, while risk-off assets serve as safe havens during times of market uncertainty. With the effect that the tariffs have had on the crypto markets, many analysts are now firmly in the camp that Bitcoin is, at the moment, a risk-on asset, and that further market turbulence will likely negatively affect BTC price. Crypto and finance influencer Amit Karakuruja said, quote, "Unfortunately, crypto is not a safe haven. Bitcoin trades on liquidity, and global liquidity decreases with tariffs," end quote. Wait, what? Bitcoin trades on liquidity, and global liquidity decreases with tariffs. Unless you're actually talking about the fiat liquidity that you use to either get into a Bitcoin trade, as in buy Bitcoin, or get out of the trade, i.e. sell Bitcoin, then you're wrong. Bitcoin is liquid itself. It is the most liquid asset that there is. It has absolutely nothing affects how much Bitcoin that if I have it, that doesn't affect how much I can send if somebody's willing to trade their goods and services for Bitcoin. Now, where this is an issue is these on and off ramps. If you're moving fiat into Bitcoin and you just don't have enough fiat because of quote unquote Trump tariffs, well, then yeah, that can definitely affect it. Or vice versa, if you're moving off, if you're getting out of your Bitcoin and into fiat, again, it's for the same reasons, just on the other side of the street. If the guy that wants to buy your Bitcoin is paying 50% more for diapers because I don't know that all the diaper manufacturers are in Canada, and I don't think that that's true. I'm just saying, if all the diaper manufacturers, because of all the babies, is in Canada, well, then yeah, you're gonna not have as much fiat currency to go and buy the dip. So that's the only way the liquidity issue plays into Bitcoin. Let's continue on. Economist and trader Alex Kruger posted February the 3rd on Twitter, quote, "Bitcoin is mainly a risk asset. Tariffs this aggressive are very negative for risk assets, and the economy will take a hit," end quote. According to Kruger, the best hope is that retaliations from countries targeted by the tariffs aren't too high, and that the U.S. and other countries find common ground fast, so tariffs may be pared back fast and soon, end quote. The prospect of reconciliation seems especially far away, given that as Trump signed the order, he said the U.S. was not seeking any concessions from Canada, Mexico, or China, as he told reporters on February the 2nd, quote, "If they want to play the game, I don't mind. We can play the game all they want," end quote. His comments regarding tariffs on the EU and possibly the UK were not particularly conciliatory either. Quote, "The UK is out of line, but I think that one can be worked out. But the European Union, it's an atrocity what they've done," end quote. So UK is probably gonna be all right during all this. But I get the feeling that Trump, like, well, several people that Trump would claim would be swamp creatures, they don't like the EU. We on several occasions, United States fiscal policy has put the EU into a hell of a state. And it looks like Trump's about to do it again. So drain the swamp? Well, do so at your own risk if you need some swamp creatures on your side. But in either event, other market observers are unfazed by the market's recent dip. And they believe that conditions currently putting downward pressure on Bitcoin could soon create a meteoric rise. And over the weekend, analysts and crypto Twitter degens repeated the old adage that investors should buy the dip in anticipation of further gains. Bitwise's European head of research, Andrei Dragash, said on February the 3rd that there were, quote, big declines in sentiment and positioning across the board, and that it's a good time to start adding exposure in Bitcoin, in my opinion, end quote. Later in the same day, he said that accumulations were already starting to pick up, and he gives a graph showing that a lot of people are starting to buy some Bitcoin. Jeff Park, head of alpha strategies at Bitwise Invest, predicted that, quote, as the financial war unravels, the price of Bitcoin will go violently higher. Well, now, Trump's World Liberty Financial was not spared from the market sell-off at all. In fact, Trump himself could be feeling some pain. His family's decentralized finance protocol, World Liberty Financial, went on an altcoin buying spree just hours before his inauguration on January the 20th. You remember that, ladies and gentlemen? Remember how he put wrapped Bitcoin into his portfolio? And God only knows, I think he bought Solana too, but he got wrecked, man. Wrecked because the investments, which totaled over $270 million earlier this week, fell by over 21%. Or $51.7 million on February the 2nd. So the dude is standing from $270 million to a little bit less than what? He's like sitting at $218,000 or $1 million off of the 270 that he put into the shitcoin casino. And he immediately rugged his own ass. I'm telling you, this is the only time where I think possible ethics issues could work in our favor. I'm just saying. Now, that's the end of that story. Jeff, a person by the name of Jeff Park was mentioned in that story and what he thought was going on and why we could see a rise in Bitcoin. Well, so happens that they're referring to this Substack article that Jeff Park wrote. And I've got it for you. And if Jeff Park is going to be mad at me for reading this without permission, I'm sorry, Jeff, but I think people need to know more about what you're saying. Plus, you can always go to his Substack. Jeff has a Substack, and this is where I'm reading it from. I'm not paying a subscription for it, so it's public domain. I'm just so anybody is like, oh man, I can't believe you're just ripping him off. I'm not. A lot of people don't even know who the hell Jeff Park is. If anything, I'm giving the guy a hand. Anyway, the name of the article is Tariffs, Triffin, and Trump, How the Endgame Sends Bitcoin Vertical. You simply have not yet grasped how amazing a sustained tariff war is going to be for Bitcoin in the long run. Now, he wrote this yesterday, February the 2nd, or at least that's when he published it. To understand tariffs today, there are two contexts that you have to frame the conversation in. Number one, the curse of the Triffin dilemma, and number two, Trump's personal goals. By analyzing both, the end game becomes clear. Tariffs might be just a temporary tool, but the permanent conclusion is that Bitcoin is not only going higher, but faster. First, the Triffin dilemma. The United States dollar status as a reserve currency gives the U.S. what is called exorbitant privilege in financial transactions and trade. And it has a few implications. Number one, the dollar is structurally overvalued due to its need to be held as a reserve by other countries in a price inelastic manner. And number 2, the U.S. has to run a persistent trade balance deficit to supply the world with those dollars. And 3, the U.S. government therefore can borrow persistently cheaper than it should be able to. The United States wants to keep number 3, but get rid of number 1 and number 2. But how? Say hello to tariffs. Recognize that tariffs are often a temporary negotiation tool to achieve a goal. The ultimate goal is to seek a multilateral agreement to weaken the dollar, essentially a Plaza Accord 2.0. Gonna pause there. I had to look up Plaza Accords. This was in 1985. The US and France and a whole bunch of European guys got together in a room and they tried to figure out a way to take a little bit of the steam out of the United States dollar. Now, the United States was part of this agreement, right? They were part of the agreement. It's not like this was being done behind the United States' backs. The Plaza Accord basically sucked a little bit of the juju out of the dollar. But in so doing, we were able to supply the world with dollars. It's an interesting financial set of tools when people get together from different countries, sit in a room and say, in what other ways outside of the market can we make agreements that set prices on our fiat currencies? Honestly, I don't think this is the best way to go about doing shit, because that means you're trying to control something over and above a free market, and free markets have this tendency to thumb their nose at your ass, and you end up, well, where we are today. But I'm not blaming the Plaza Accord. I'm just kind of trying to describe what it was. But that's sort of what it was. It was an agreement between the United States and a whole bunch of European guys to devalue the dollar a little bit on the world stage. So continuing with the article, one hypothetical way that this could happen, weakening the dollar, like the Plaza Accord 2.0, that the U.S. would explicitly specify that countries have to reduce their dollar reserves while also requiring them to shift the duration of the United States Treasury holding further out. In other words, Trump is trying to find a way to implement a YCC, not YCC strategy within the realms of the executive branch. No doubt, Besant is on board, recognizing that he was left a bag of trash by former Secretary of the Treasury Yellen, whose legacy will have been the near-permanent impairment of the Treasury's ability to manage duration by doubling the proportion of debt financing to Treasury bills, also known as adding fake liquidity, exposing the U.S. to the mercy of the whims of refinancing idiotically while interest rates were beginning to rise. The cost to U.S. taxpayers here cannot be understated. And as a result, the United States is charting a path to achieve the holy grail of fiat alchemy, lower dollar and lower yield. And this brings me to my second point. I have shared before that Trump's number one goal is to lower the 10-year rate. The reason being that his own bags depend on it. Real estate. His obsession with Powell cutting short-term rates, then realizing it's not working, is the catalyst. Never doubt the uncomplicated incentives of the transparently profit-motivated and align yourself next to him. Mark my words, the 10-year is going to go down, whatever it takes. So the asset to own, therefore, is Bitcoin. In a world of a weaker dollar and weaker U.S. rates, something broken pundits will tell you is impossible because they can't model statecraft. Risk assets in the United States will fly through the roof beyond your wildest imaginations. For it is likely a giant tax cut will have to accompany the higher cost borne by the loss of a competitive advantage, or a comparative advantage. The tariff cost, most likely, though through higher inflation, will be shared by both U.S. and trade partners, but the relative impact will be much heavier on the foreign nations. These countries then will have to find a way to fend off their weak ass growth issues leading to stimulating the economy through monetary and fiscal policies that ultimately cause currency debasement. The outraged citizens of these countries will experience a mini financial crisis and look for alternatives. And unlike the 1970s, when the world was largely offline, today we are not only online, we are on-chain. So while both sides of the trade imbalance equation will want Bitcoin for two different reasons, the end result is the same. Higher, violently faster, for we are at war. The TLDR, you simply have not yet grasped how amazing a sustained tariff war is going to be for Bitcoin in the long run. So this guy, unlike some of the other dudes that we were talking about in the first story we were reading, this guy has the opposite view. He thinks the tariffs are going to cause such financial pressures on citizenries around the world that they are going to use what Christine Lagarde called the escape hatch. But this time, Christine Lagarde isn't going to be worried about this escape hatch. Why? Because she's distracted. She's distracted by what Orange Man is doing. Everybody, in fact, is distracted by what Orange Man is doing. So therefore, what the hell is it we're not seeing? I'm not saying that the only reason he's doing tariffs is to distract everybody. I'm just saying that it gives a nice, pleasant fog of war kind of cover for all kinds of other chicanery going on in the background, but we can't see it because our attention is directed at angry Canadians, and, well, it seems that Mexico may be lightening up. We'll have to find out. But I want to get over here to MicroStrategy because they've done something that they haven't done in weeks and weeks and weeks. MicroStrategy has not bought Bitcoin. They didn't buy Bitcoin this week. They didn't. In fact, Michael Saylor actually announced that they didn't buy Bitcoin. So this is from CoinDesk, written by Helene Braun. MicroStrategy, the fourth largest owner of Bitcoin, did not buy any new Bitcoin last week. Executive Chairman Michael Saylor announced on Twitter, and that ended a 12-week string of purchases. So, since November the 11th, the Tysons Corner, Virginia-based company has bought 218,887 Bitcoin, according to Saylor, and it currently holds 471,107 Bitcoin. While Saylor didn't say why the company held back, a likely reason could be its impending earnings release after the market closed in 2 days on February the 5th, said James Van Stratton, a senior analyst over there at CoinDesk. Public companies go into a so-called blackout period for some time before earnings release to prevent insider trading. And during that period, which can last for days, weeks, or even months, people with financial information about the company are restricted from buying or selling the company's securities. In MicroStrategy's case, given that the majority of its balance sheet is Bitcoin, this could include trading the cryptocurrency. And last week, the company announced a preferred share offering of roughly $250 million to purchase even more BTC. Then, just a few days later, it more than doubled that amount as it sold roughly 7.3 million shares of the series. So what does all that shit mean? Well, it means that on February the 5th, they released their earnings from MicroStrategy. Now, what this earnings release is not going to be able to do is include any gains made on the Bitcoin holdings, because the new, is it FASB? I can't remember, the FASB, the Fair Accounting something rules. Those don't come into play until, I think, May. And so May and after will be the first time that companies that hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet will be able to look at Bitcoin and see gains and say they can put that as earnings. Or it will factor into their earnings statement, whereas before they could only count it as a loss if Bitcoin lost value while they were holding it. All right, so that's going to be different, but that's not going to play any role on February the 5th, which is a Wednesday. Right, so on Wednesday, MicroStrategy is going to drop their numbers, and they're probably going to suck. Because MicroStrategy, in my view, doesn't give one shit about software that they've been building for business intelligence. They don't care. I get the feeling that all they're going to do is service all of their old customers until those customers start using something else, or they go out of business, or they die, or whatever. Because MicroStrategy does not care about making software anymore. They're completely changing gears. All right, so that's the first thing. Now, the second thing is, and this is what I find odd, is if they knew they weren't going to buy Bitcoin because they were going into earnings season in February, drop their earnings on February the 5th, and therefore they weren't going to be doing any coins or anything like that, then why did they go ahead and sell the shares of this Strike preferred stock? Strike is the name of this stock. STRK, I believe, is the ticker symbol. They not only did they sell all they wanted to, it was so oversubscribed they had to more than double it. And it was for expressly two purposes, to buy Bitcoin and have a little bit of money for operating costs. But yet they did not buy any Bitcoin during the period in which this stock actually sold hand over fist. So they're sitting on a mountain of cash. They could be buying Bitcoin, but because, according to James Van Straten, they're not doing that because it's a blackout period, or could be not that they're not doing it because it's a blackout period until their earnings are dropped on February the 5th. Does that mean after they drop their earnings and then after that they start buying Bitcoin with this money they got from selling 7.3 million shares? I don't know. It's like $500 million is what they're sitting on. So I don't know, man. But I do find it kind of odd that they are not buying any Bitcoin this week. Okay, so now the Circle P is open for business, and Osiris, or rather premium sun-grown flour from Crypto Vantage, is being sold on plebeian.market, PLEBEIAN.market. And it's got a picture of a whole bunch of, like good-looking pot from Osiris Exotics. It just says Osiris. It's got a picture of Osiris Exotics in the background of this picture of the pot. So I don't know. But the details are this. If you want to get high, this is a generously filled 1 ounce bag of fresh, organic, sun-grown flowers. And it's weedy. It's pot. You shove it in your pipe and you smoke it and you get good and high. Well, you can get this ounce of good-looking pot for 100,000 Satoshis. Says here he's got 100 in stock, and that is from Crypto_Vantage. Now, if you want, you can go into the show notes and you can look for the plebeian.market URL and click it, and it will take you directly to this page where you can buy all the pot you want. And right below that will actually be the guy's Prime or a nostr page, so you can go talk to him directly on nostr if you want to. But, me, myself, I haven't smoked pot in like well over a year. Before that, it was like 10 years. And before that, it was like 5 years. Me, myself, I just don't care anymore. But if you're somebody out there and you really want to give like this guy a try, well, go to plebeian.market and buy yourself some black market pot on the internet, because that's what plebeian market allows you to do. And because he's selling it for Satoshis, i.e. Bitcoin, well, that's why he's in the Circle P, because if you're not selling your goods and services for Bitcoin, then you're not in the Circle P. Let's get on to the rest of the show. Bitcoin, XRP, and Dogecoin rebound as Trump pauses the Mexican trade tariffs. Oh, Mexican standoff. And it looks like somebody might be bending some knees. Andrew Hayward, writing for Decrypt. Bitcoin and other major assets are on a surprise upswing after a brutal day of declines following word that President Trump will pause the planned implementation of trade tariffs against Mexico and attempt to negotiate a deal with that country. Nothing about China, nothing about Canada. This is only about Mexico. Let's be clear about that. The price of Bitcoin rose nearly $4,000 in the span of an hour as news started to spread. Oh my God. And while Bitcoin took a hit, other major assets plunged harder over the weekend. And they talk about a couple of shit coins, and I really don't give a shit. Let's see. Let's get on down here to where Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum announced on Monday that she did, in fact, speak with Donald Trump and agree on a pause to the U.S. tariffs as well as Mexico's planned retaliation, and that Mexico will send 10,000 soldiers to the United States border to attempt to prevent illegal cross-border drug trafficking and migration. Trump wrote on his Truth Social platform that the countries, quote, agreed to immediately pause the anticipated tariffs for a 1-month period, with negotiations planned with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent, and Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick. President Trump added that he hopes to, quote, achieve a deal with Mexico. Planned trade tariffs against Canada and China are still currently set to go in effect on Tuesday. And my boy, howdy, the Canucks are pissed. They're booing United States teams at hockey face-offs, right? It's amazing. You piss off some Canadians and they're not polite anymore. They're not nice anymore. No. They're basically saying, giving the finger to the United States. It's all kind of hilarious. We'll have to see how this crap plays out. But Mexico, to send 10,000 troops to their own border, and we'll have to see if they actually do that, because talk is cheap. Actually bussing those dudes out there to the border, and 10,000 of them, that shit's expensive. But if they do it, the United States and Mexico might end up with much better relations. Not because it's Trump and not because of the tariffs. I think what it is just a collective sigh from the United States that we're just freaking tired of the bullshit on the southern border. And everybody keeps talking about this northern border stuff. I don't see a whole lot of immigration coming over the border from the north. We do see it in the southern borders, right? But it's not just that. It really is a lot about drugs. And the southern border is so ridiculously porous anyway that maybe, just maybe, both countries are like, this may be getting out of hand. Maybe even the countries themselves, not just the United States, but even Mexico, is like, nobody wants to live here. Why does everybody keep going to the United States? You can't tax people if they don't live in your country. And it may be getting to the point that Mexico's going, we might want to keep some of these people here. I'm just saying, maybe it could be a change in a positive direction for both countries. At least for Texas. Mexico is a huge part of the Texas story. And Texas is a massive part of the Mexican story. You cannot have one of those stories without the other one. All right? Texas and Mexico share a special relationship. And a lot of people will go, well, Texas is one of the people that really hates immigration. No, that's not entirely true. That is not entirely true. Most of the immigration that happens in Texas is actually short-term cross-border crossings. The border is really porous down there, but it's short-term, which means that people from Mexico will literally cross the Rio Grande, the stream that it's become. It's not really a river anymore. They will cross it. They will go to a Dollar General in like El Paso or, somewhere, whatever cities are on the border. And then they will go back. They'll just go back. I mean, there is a huge amount of short-term. We're talking like 4, 5, 6 hour immigration and then emigration on the Texas Mexican border. In Texas, as far as long-term shit, we've been dealing with it for years. Texas has been dealing with it for years. But that does not make it where people people think that all Texans hate Mexicans because of this. That is not true. That is not fucking true. You might hear a couple of people on the news that was put in front of your face make it sound that way, but that is not at all what's going on in Texas. When you get too many people, like we could have too many people from Louisiana flooding over our borders, and we'd be going, hey, stop that shit. You can't just come over here and just bum off of us. The same thing for New Mexico. The same thing for Oklahoma. Right? For those of you out there that were led to believe that all Texans hate all Mexicans, that is so not the case. Our stories, the Texas story and the Mexican story, are so closely woven together that we cannot be the warm, cozy blanket that we are without those threads of both of the histories being woven together into this story. Please stop believing the bullshit CNN and NBC and CBS tells you. Let's run the numbers. CNBC, futures and commodities. I got West Texas Intermediate oil, which is up after it was down, after it was up. But right now, it's up half a point to $72.91. It got as high as $75 when tariffs were on the table 100% and there was no capitulation from anybody anywhere. And then it abruptly fell the second that Mexico and Trump started talking. That's how shaky all these markets are. Brent North Sea is up 1/4 point. Natural gas is up 10 1/3 points, back up to 335 per 1,000 cubic feet. Gasoline up over 2.5 points to $2.11. Gold is up 0.79%. Wow, $2,857.50. Good for you, Peter Schiff. Silver up 0.8%. Platinum is down 4%. Copper is up almost a point. Palladium is down 2.25 points. Everything in ag is in the green except for rough rice and sugar. And rough rice is the biggest loser of the day, 0.75 point to the downside. Biggest winner looks like it's going to be soybeans, 1.5 to the upside. Live cattle down a full point. Lean hogs are down, 4.5. And feeder cattle are down 2. I guess this has something to do with the tariffs as well. The Dow is now moving sideways after it clawed back some pretty steep losses because of, tariffs. 44,666 is what the Dow stands at right now. S&P is down 0.5 point, as is the NASDAQ, but the S&P mini sharper losses, 0.85% to the downside. And of course, as we all know, we took a licking in Bitcoin. We went all the way down to something like, I want to say it was 92,400, 92,006. Since then, we've erased part of that. We've come back up $100,880. No, it looks like we're on a huge tear because it's changing right in front of my eyes. Now it's $100,940. And that puts us smack dab right at $2 trillion of market cap. You can get 35.7 ounces of shiny metal rocks with your one Bitcoin, of which there are 19,819,091.85 of. And average fees per block are low because mempools kept clearing over the weekend and Bitcoin was going to die again. It's how many times have we been through empty mempools? How many times have we been through full mempool? It doesn't matter. And all the time that the mempools were clearing out, you know what was being added? Hash rate. We were at like 816 exahashes per second sometime over the weekend, and that was up from like 780 while mempools were clearing at 1 Satoshi per VByte. And guess what? Bitcoin didn't die. Isn't that amazing? It's just, it never, ever ceases to amaze me. The short-sightedness and the damn near like what is it when you lose your memory? Oh God. See, now going through anaphasia, I cannot remember the word for it. Amnesia. There we go. It's like they have amnesia. How many times was Bitcoin going to die because either the mempools were too full or the mempool was empty? Not the mempool. Mempools around the world. Mempools around the world were empty. Either too many people are using Bitcoin or nobody's using Bitcoin. And either one of those extremes, Bitcoin dies. And guess what never happened? It never died. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 12 blocks in mempools around the world carrying a scant 2,700 transactions. That's right. Not 27,000, not 207,000, but 2,700. And high priorities are going to clear you at 2 Satoshis per VByte. Same for low priority transactions. We have 835.6 exahashes per second. Holy smokes. Oh my God. It looks like we have an estimated difficulty increase coming at 7.6%. So let's see, that will be, when is that? When's that coming? Oh, 5 days. In 5 days, we're estimated to go up in difficulty 7.6%. Yet, mempools are clear. Why? Because hash rate keeps coming online. Well, why would you do that if you're not getting any fees? Well, we still have the subsidy, right? I mean, that's the rub. All these people that are saying Bitcoin's going to die because this week, nobody was using Bitcoin. Because the miners are still putting on hash rate because they want that subsidy, but it sure as shit ain't the fees. That's the argument. They're looking at like 2, 8, 16 years in the future. And they still don't wrap their head around it. If Bitcoin was $2 million 4 years from now, miners would be actually making even more money on a hell of a lot less of a subsidy on mining. This is what they don't get. And it's almost analogous to the MicroStrategy trade. You sell that because you're hoping, or actually you kind of realize that Bitcoin's going to increase in value and you'll be able to pay that debt off at a fraction of what it cost you to buy the actual Bitcoin. It's just, nobody ever gets this. It's almost as if Michael Saylor said, I'm going to model everything that I do from now on over Bitcoin mining. Anyway, let's get on to Stablecorn, which was Friday's episode of Bitcoin. And I got Vinny giving me 2048 sat, says, let's do something about that zap amount floor. Thank you, Vinny. I appreciate it. Anonymous with 1,000 says, insert random emoji here. Yeah, well, I probably wouldn't be able to read it anyway. God's Death with 537 says, thank you, sir. No, thank you. Nick Dose with 101 says, cheers. Paul Serene with 100 says, thank you, sir. Always appreciate your episodes and choice of new stories. Keep rocking. I will do so, sir. And then Grin simply says, interesting. And because she included the fountain.fm URL to this particular episode, she didn't actually have to give me any Satoshis to get in here. God dang it. Cheapskate. That's the weather report. Welcome to part 2 of the news that you can use. Law firm that sued Pump.fun is being linked to a $23 million dog shit 2 coin. Seriously, this is a meme coin. Stephen Cotti from Cointelegraph. A meme coin believed to have been launched by a law firm to help it build a class action lawsuit against Solana meme coin creator Pump.fun recently has gained attention in the community, hitting a $23 million market cap. Pump.fun was hit with a proposed class action lawsuit on January the 30th by investors alleging that every token it helped make is an unregistered security from which it made nearly $500 million in fees. The lawsuit was filed by U.S. law firms Berwick Law and Wolf Popper on behalf of the investors. However, hold up, y'all, hold up. Observers within the crypto community quickly noticed that the address shown in Exhibit C of the court documents matched the wallet address behind Dogshit Going Nowhere, otherwise known as Dogshit2, leading many to believe the law firms are behind the token. Ooh, what interesting webs we weave. Exhibit C of the court documents has the launch date as October 31st of last year, while the listing comes with a warning, don't buy this coin. Data from Gecko Terminal shows the meme coin spiked in value since January the 31st after the proposed lawsuit was filed, as observers made the connection. At its peak on January 31st, the Dogshit2 market cap exceeded 23 million, according to data on Pump.fun. It has now fallen back to 2.4 million. But meanwhile, the token's price hit its all-time high of 0.003968 on February the 2nd before tumbling 34%. Berwick Law and Wolf Popper did not immediately respond to Cointelegraph's request for comment. Last December, Berwick Law also requested that anyone who lost money on viral influencer Haley Welch's Hawk2A meme coin contact them. It comes amid a new flurry of meme coin activity. Elon Musk's father has been the latest figure to discuss a potential meme coin launch. Calls it Musket. Jesus, oh my God. Amid growing interest in celebrity-backed meme tokens, Pump.fun usage surged over the past week when it recorded an all-time high of 3.3 billion in weekly trading. Oh, for God's sakes. So the very law firms that the lawsuit against Pump.fun is coming from seems to have spun up a meme coin called Dogshit2, with a proviso that you do not buy this meme coin. I don't think that's going to help. And honestly, maybe it does help them. Maybe what they were doing was saying, look, this is how easy it is for scammers to spin up a meme coin, and Exhibit C, and I haven't looked at Exhibit C, just shows exactly how easy it is to get on Pump.fun and essentially vacuum up money from people's pockets, their cold hard cash that they can't afford to lose, and just basically steal it. Who knows? Or in a more tinfoil hat way, maybe Pump.fun and these two law firms are working together somehow to increase the amount of, maybe it's money laundering. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe the guys over at Pump.fun realize that they're going to get all their money stolen from them by the U.S. government because the SEC is going to come down hard as a hammer on their ass for unregistered securities, which is what they are. So luckily, though, there's a law firm that's going to be able to take a third. This is what these guys are going to get paid, is generally speaking, it is a third of the settlement if they win the settlement on the investor's behalf, so they at least get to retain a third of all these ill-gotten gains. It'll be interesting to see how this shakes out. Now, do I know this for a fact? No, man, I am so spitballing, and it's not even a gut feeling, but it would be interesting to see that as a type of money laundering kind of thing. Anyway, let's get on over to Utah, where the Mormons are running around, and they could be the first U.S. state to adopt a Bitcoin reserve. Utah could, this is from Atlas 21, by the way, Utah could become the first state to officially establish a Bitcoin reserve. Why? Well, this milestone could be reached because the state's legislative calendar, it only allows a 45-day window for law approval. And in a recent interview with Cynthia Lummis and Dennis Porter, which is CEO of the Satoshi Action Fund, they highlighted Utah's privileged position in the Bitcoin race. Quote, "It's either sink or swim in 45 days. No other state has a faster calendar, and no other state has more political momentum and willpower to get it done," end quote. On January the 28th, the committee in the Utah House approved a bill with an 8-1 vote, which would allow the state to invest a portion of its public funds in digital assets. Porter pointed out that every bill passed by the Utah House Economic Development Committee in recent years has turned out to be law, strengthening the prospects of success for this particular initiative. Arizona is the only other state to have reached a similar stage in the legislative process, and other states such as Illinois, Ohio, Massachusetts, and Texas have proposed similar bills. Alabama, Florida, and Kentucky, and South Dakota have publicly expressed support for the idea, although they have yet to formalize legislative proposals. So what did all that mean? It just means that Utah, the second that you pass it out of committee and you put it on the floor for a vote, you get only 45 days. No other state has such a short time span. I don't know what the other states' time spans are, but it's more than 45 days. And since there's only one other proposal that's been passed out of committee and sent to the floor for a vote, and that's Arizona. Everything else is either just fully proposed or under review in some committee before it can actually go for a vote on the legislative floor of those states. So let's say that the day, let's do it this way. The day that Utah passed that bill out of committee and put it to a vote in legislature, if the very next day, 24 hours later, every single other state had also done the same, but 24 hours later, Utah would still possibly be able to be the first state in the United States to do it because they have to do it in 45 days, and all the rest of these guys can take longer. So there you go. There you go. Now, speaking of Texas, they had a cold winter, or rather they are having a cold winter, and I miss my state. I wish I was home. But the cold winter is challenging Bitcoin mining. This is also from Atlas 21. According to Hashrate Index, the cold wave that hit the United States in January had a significant impact on Bitcoin mining activities in Texas, a state that alone accounts for 17% of total U.S. mining. Temperatures plunged to 0 degrees Celsius in a region traditionally known for its mild winters, and the mining industry faced a dual challenge: a surge in electricity consumption for home heating and the resulting increase in energy costs. The rising energy demand, combined with supply challenges from renewable sources such as wind and solar, forced grid operators to rely more on natural gas, whose prices spiked significantly as well. Following the temporary suspension of numerous mining operations due to unsustainable operating costs, Bitcoin recorded its first negative difficulty adjustment, which was just 2.1% to the downside, but it did track that in this first 4 months, and it did it on January the 26th. Miner revenue per terahash decreased slightly in January compared to December, suggesting that firms had a harder time mining Bitcoin profitably. And according to analysts at Luxor's mining pool, the situation is expected to normalize as temperatures return to seasonal levels. Quote, colder weather in the U.S. is a temporary disruption, and we expect hash rate stability to improve as temperatures normalize. You know, it just dawned on me. When is Bitcoin mining projections going to be included in the old Farmer's Almanac? If any of you out there are like me and you geek out on the new Farmer's Almanac or the old Farmer's Almanac, those are actually two different publications, then you'll know what I'm talking about. It'll be in the weather. It would be in the weather section. And the Farmer's Almanac comes out, and they basically leverage a century and a half of weather data for the United States to tell you what these winters or the summer's going to be like, or the spring's going to be like, what your sustained temperatures are going to be. And honestly, they're not terribly far off most of the times. Most of the time, that's why people buy the Farmer's Almanac, because generally speaking, they're close enough for you to be able to plan. It comes out in I think the new Farmer's Almanac comes out in January, or the old Farmer's Almanac comes out in January. I can't really remember. But so 6 months later is like midsummer or getting into summer. And they're saying what the summer's going to be like. And lo and behold, most of the times they're actually pretty damn accurate. So when will Bitcoin mining be introduced into the Old Farmer's Almanac? I would love to see that. That would be great. Now, speaking of mining, Block's Proto partners, that's Block, like Jack Dorsey's outfit. Block's Proto partners, well, hold on. Let me do this again for the 8th time. Block's Proto partners with the 256 Foundation to support open source Bitcoin mining. Woo! Good God Almighty. Today, quote, today we're pleased to announce a long-term partnership with the 256 Foundation, a Nashville-based nonprofit focused on developing and advocating for solutions that lower Bitcoin mining's barrier to entry from educational resources to open source software, firmware, and hardware solutions. To support the initiative, Proto has donated up to 256K BZM2 ASIC chips. Oh, wow, 256,000 BZM2 ASIC chips to the foundation, allowing them to allocate these resources to emerging mining projects at their own discretion. Quote, in the end, Bitcoin's decentralized future is up to all of us to define, and while industrial mining will certainly play an important role, communities like the 256 Foundation may ultimately determine the network's enduring character and make meaningful contributions to its decentralization. So, wow, that's 256,000 ASIC chips is a lot. Now, I don't know what the BZM2 ASIC chip costs, but I can guarantee you it's more than $1. Just saying. On to Damus Note Deck. Not just Damus, but Damus Note Deck. Version 0.3.0, or the Alpha 2, has been released publicly. And if you did not know, Note Deck is sort of like the old Tweet Deck, where you can have multiple columns, and each column is like your tweet, or, well, your notes, and this is nostr, so we're talking about notes. Like your notes in one column, likes and reactions in another column, maybe zaps in a third column if you got any zaps or something like that. Maybe a hashtag in the fourth column that you're following. And Note Deck or Twitter Deck or Tweet Deck was great. I used it almost exclusively before I got booted off of Twitter, and now I've come to find out that Tweet Deck is essentially just basically gone. I don't know any more about it. But Note Deck for Damus is out. It does seem to be working. And here is the project's announcement. We can't believe it's been 2 years today that Damus has been on the App Store. We are beyond excited that you all have stuck around and supported the team for this long. And to celebrate the occasion, we're launching Damus Note Deck, our very alpha multi-platform nostr client. Note Deck is now publicly available for anyone or everyone to test, previously limited to Purple subscribers. This release also includes media uploads, post hashtags, profile editing, an enhanced command line interface for user interactions, and various improvements and bug fixes. Let's see, what's new? Clicking a mention now opens the profile page. Note previews when hovering over reply descriptions. There are media uploads. There's profile editing. You can add hashtags to posts now. Enhanced command line interface for user interactions. Various Android updates, because this is also available on Android. Although I don't know how the hell you'd have multiple columns on a phone, but whatever. And then there's debug features for user relay list and mute list synchronization. So there's that. Now, finally, for today, the Human Rights Foundation awarded every single one of the 11 Bitcoin development bounties that they had out. And this is out of no bullshit Bitcoin. It was the summer of 2023. The Human Rights Foundation launched a Bitcoin bounty program offering 11 bounties to fund developers creating tools for activists fighting authoritarianism. The bounties aim to improve UX, enhance privacy, and open source closed systems with the deadline of December 31st, 2024. Quote, we are excited to announce that every single bounty was claimed and that the resulting tools and upgrades are now empowering human rights activists daily across popular apps such as Blue Wallet, Zeus, Stack Wallet, Iris, Coracle, Keeper, Bull Bitcoin, Cake Wallet, and more, announced the organization. The bounties awarded to the following projects, developers, and contributors. Number 1, open sourcing the Bitcoin design guide had a bounty of 2 BTC. That's a lot of money, y'all. Serverless PayJoin got 1.5 BTC. End-to-end encrypted nostr group chats, 2 BTC. Silent payments got 1 BTC. Human readable offers, 1 BTC. Self-custodial mobile lightning address, 1 BTC. Mobile border wallets, 2 Bitcoin. Easy mobile multisig, 1 Bitcoin. Frost multisig wallet, 1 Bitcoin. Cashew upgrades, 2 Bitcoin. And BIP47 expansion, 1/2 of 1 Bitcoin. Quote, excuse me, we learned a lot through this process, and we look forward to doing similar things in the future. There's so much to be gained from mixing political dissidents with developers, said Alex Gladstein, Chief Strategy Officer at the Human Rights Foundation. Today, HRF also announced the launch of its first AI program. Yes, you heard it, artificial intelligence. The program is aiming to monitor and expose the use of AI by autocrats as a tool of repression and to support open source AI tools for dissidents, especially those laboring under tyranny. Learn more about it here. And that is a link. And it looks like it goes to njump.me, so I'm not gonna do that. This sentence right here needs to be said probably a couple more times. This is the quote from Alex Gladstein. There's so much to be gained from mixing political dissidents with developers. Mixing political dissidents with developers. Got to say it one more time. Mixing political dissidents with developers. All of these tools since the release of Bitcoin, and yes, before, but it really came to a head with the release of Bitcoin back in 2008, 2009. Before that time, most people would look at computer programming, software engineering, a computer programmer, computer development, the software development, developers, as something that stood over there, and you didn't talk to them, and they didn't want to come to your party because they're geeky and they're introverts and they'd rather eat Hot Pockets while playing a video game and then coding from 2:00 in the morning until the sun comes up. Right? They're geeks, they're nerds, they're math guys. They don't want to hang out with you. Bullshit, they don't. Now, after Bitcoin, what we're seeing across the board is this mixing of software development, developers. All of that is crashing like an iceberg into the good ship Lollipop that carries all of the dissidents, all the people that are tired of totalitarianism. And I'm not talking about, oh my God, Chip, the Orange Man's totalitarian. I don't give a shit. That's not the guy I'm worried about. I'm not worried about the president of France. He's just a fucking puppet. They're all puppets. The strings that are on their arms and legs are being bounced up and down by somebody else, and that somebody has a shit ton of money, and you don't know who they are because they were smart enough forever and ever and ever to do what Satoshi Nakamoto did, is basically not only ever appear, much less give you their name. They didn't even have to disappear because they were never on the stage in the first freaking place. The guys that are doing the real control behind the scenes, that's the bullshit. It's not the guy they put in front of the camera. That's the fall guy. If you can recognize that guy walking down the street as the president of France, you can be assured it's because they put him there for you to recognize, because he's or she's the distraction. That's not the people pulling the strings. And now we have a hell of a pool party, ladies and gentlemen. We've got dissidents on one side, we've got software developers on the other side, hookers are in the middle, beer's in the fridge, coke and amphetamines are over there. I mean, it's a free for all. And mixing political dissidents with software development, you know what falls out of that? You know what babies are created by that union? Freedom, or something very much like it. I'm in love with that sentence. So I'll say it one more time. There's so much to be gained from mixing political dissidents with developers. I'll see you on the other side. This has been Bitcoin and I'm your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.